Happy Monday, everybody. Hope your week's starting out well. This is the weekly Meristem practice. As always, if you'd like a little bit more info, go to the description. There's an intro video that you can learn more about each element. As always, the goal is we do our inner practice to grow ourselves, which models that for the people that we work with or the people that are around us, which hopefully creates greater change. And this is what we're about. The more people doing it, hopefully the more impact we'll have on a healthier social life in our world. So join us. That being said, let's jump in. So we're continuing with the concept this week of threefold. Threefold being three constellations, three elements that are kind of working in unique relationship or similar relationship to each other. Last week we did three very similar elements, and we explored kind of finding the uniqueness in those similarities. This week we're exploring the 2+1 version of three, which could either be two polarity elements and a unique element, or it could be two similar elements and a unique element, creating a constellation of three. And our practice or concept that we're exploring this week is how I relate to those, or where I can find those in my life today, and how I'm moving with them. The practice is research. So we're paying attention to specifically the polarity constellation of three. So that's 2 and 1. In this case, you might say point, periphery, and the movement between, so back and forth, could be a polarity. And what we're exploring is where you gravitate towards in that triad. So I might like to be the person that's always moving back and forth between, but I never find a home at the periphery or the point. I might just love being the point and never really get comfortable with moving back and forth. Or I might just love being in the periphery. What you want to explore is where do you tend towards, which direction is easier to move, and which direction is harder to move in relationship. So for example, I might be a person who tends towards the periphery. So if I walk into a room of people, I'm going to stay on the fringes, and I like that. That's my comfort zone. Sometimes I know I got to move to the point and start engaging with people, but I do it from the periphery to the point. I might struggle going the other direction. I might struggle being able to come in and be the center and then gradually move back out to the periphery and let somebody else lead. These are things we want to kind of research about ourselves and notice, where are we landing? Where are we moving fluidly? And where are we getting stuck? And how do we break out? And what can we do potentially to break out of being in one direction being hard to move in and find better strength in moving in that direction. The value for this week is I show up, dignity. We're going to use a real simple example. It's pretty generic. You got the Oreo cookie. You have two chocolate sides and cream in the middle. So you got two similar elements and you got the unique cream. And in this case, we're going to take that and give it a little bit more definition. So typically the Oreo cookie example is used, hey, if I have to give critical feedback to somebody, I might say something like a compliment, or I might make a human connection, then I will provide that critical feedback or share the radical candor, and then I might close with closer human connection or something positive or complimentary to finish. What we want to pay attention to, if that's what we're shooting for, is how I'm showing up. And am I showing up by turning the Oreo cookie pieces into critical feedback, radical candor, and maybe something nice in the middle? So I've reversed what that process is supposed to be. Or am I going negative, 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 where it's critical feedback, manipulative insincerity is the cream, and then more critical feedback? Or am I positive, positive, positive? What you want to pay attention to is, are you being able to keep the intent of the exercise, in this case the Oreo cookie, which is positive, critical, positive, and how are you showing up in relationship to that archetype. And in this case, you're kind of looking at yourself in relationship to an archetypal process that you want to follow. Oreo cookie being a real simplistic example of that, but you can take any example of a 3 in 2 similarities with a unique element in the middle and do a little comparison as to how you show up. So this is our work for the week, our concept threefold, our practice, research, and our value, I show up, and dignity. So just coming over to our infographic, we're kind of going in reverse. So we got the value up at the top. You have the Oreo cookie. You have the positive and positive with the radical candor or direct communication in the middle. You also have the constellation of the point periphery, the movement between. And then just looking at how the sides of your Oreo cookie can shift if you're not paying attention or if you're showing up in a certain way. And so that could be all positive, all negative. In this case, you could think of radical candor not as negative, but as being direct and communicative. So it's not necessarily a negative, but it's a good way to think about, hey, am I showing up making connection and being honest and truthful, even if it causes pain, and then reconnecting at the end or not. That's the archetype I'm trying to stick to. And then the other example in the practice that we're working on is the point periphery and the movement between. And so if you think of the point as being groundedness, self-aware, one's current home location, just being the focal point. And then on the periphery side, you have community, perspective, environmental awareness, holding space for others. And then you have the movement between those two, shifting, transition, integration, and what happens when you move from point to periphery and periphery to point. And what we're really trying to explore is where do I find myself being comfortable? Where is my strength? Where do I try to avoid? And what directions of movement are harder for me and which directions of movement are easier for me? And then challenging yourself to try some of those directions that are harder for you to see if you can break through and build greater flexibility within yourself. So threefolding, working on the 2+1 concept this week. As always, you just do whatever you can, and the whole intent is for my self-growth and my self-exploration and seeing where I move, where I'm stuck, and how I can build greater flexibility. So let's go forward and awaken the possible.